Will we be able to escape this episode in less than 60 minutes? Let's find out. Welcome to Princess and Scoundrel, where we take you along our scrappily ever after, from Fantasyland to Tatooine and everything in between. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Steven.
And we are chained to our chairs right now. There is a clock just off camera that is counting down from 60 minutes, and we have to escape this episode.
We could do it.
We could do it. So, we're being silly, but we recently took a trip to Nashville to do some escape rooms. We're obsessed with escape rooms, and so we're like, you know what? Let's do an escape room episode.
Yeah.
There are no games. There's actually no escape room to it aside from this intro. But we took this trip to go knock out the rooms that we hadn't done with this company called The Escape Game that we're huge fans of. And I think we had done all of the ones that there were to do here in Houston. And we learned that they were headquartered in Nashville. And so we're like, let's go take a trip. Let's go escape Nashville.
Yeah.
We did get to go. We reached out to them over there and they invited us to go on a tour of the Adventure Factory, which is where they make the escape rooms, which is like, oh my God, we get to go behind the scenes and see how they're made. And so it is an honor to have our tour guide and the senior manager of install, Ricky Timmons, talking to us today about all things escape rooms and the escape game. Ricky, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to talk to you again. So you gave us the tour of the Adventure Factory, which was thrilling to us.
Okay, so I have to kind of interject here, Ricky. I was a little bit disappointed because in my head, like my imagination was running wild. I felt like it was going to be like Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. There was going to be escape games half built and they needed us to go help solve them. You were going to come out with the top hat, purple coat.
Like a cane.
Yeah. So there was a little bit of but overall it was awesome just to be able to experience that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you guys came in on a day when I wasn't wearing my top hat and cane, purple coat. So
no, it was super fun getting to do a tour of where, like, I felt like, are we allowed? Is the public allowed to see this stuff? Because what you guys put out is so cool and so well produced, and to see behind the scenes, it was all so like everything was so organized there that even though it wasn't the Willy Wonka factory that we dreamed of, it was even better because it was like, oh my gosh, organization, and everybody has their own stations and they're all working together. Like, what a treat that was.
I get to go around and tell people I work, where I work for the escape game. And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, I work in the Adventure Factory. And they're like, well, what is that? What is that? What do you mean? So like, I mean, there's not a lot of worlds where you get to say that you work in the Adventure Factory and tell people about it. And people are actually genuinely interested in what you do and where you work. So, yes, it does have some mystique around it, but at the same time, it's such a great thing to be able to go around and tell people.
So I know we're talking about taking the tour of this Adventure Factory of the escape game, which is what the company is called. But can you kind of explain for those that don't know what an escape room is and kind of just get everybody at least to the starting
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our official pitch is it's a 60-minute adventure where you can take your friends and family and you're going to solve puzzles and riddles and complete tasks in order to get through different rooms and stages in order to escape at the end of that 60 minutes. So that's like the elevator pitch, right? But what it ultimately is it is a live embodiment of a board game for the most part, right? So it's all your favorite parts of a board game, your favorite parts of like video games, etc. And we put you in an immersive environment where you get to act out all of these games and actually engage and interact with the puzzles and all of the problem solving in order to get through these different levels and escape at the end. And you get to celebrate with your friends and family. And yeah, I mean, like if you are in any way a puzzle or game person, then I highly recommend trying one of the escape games and learning what it is, and you'll be addicted and hooked. Like guaranteed.
Absolutely. Even just you pitching it, I'm like, let's go do one right now.
But
Makes
I
me
think
want to.
the interesting thing is we started to go to escape rooms in general,
Yep.
because of the puzzle aspect. Like we like to solve puzzles, and this idea of solving a series of puzzles to escape this room. Because I think initially there's like escape room, like that sounds weird. Like they're locking you in a room and you have to solve puzzles. Like the locking in the room aspect of it, it's kind of like
Which you guys
weird.
don't do. You're always very clear and like, this door is not locked. If you need to leave, you can leave. Which
like,
is nice.
yeah.
The fire marshal does not want us to lock anyone in, and actually lock anyone in a room. Yes, correct.
But that's the weird part. But the part that drew us in was the solving the puzzles and that aspect of it. But the part that got us hooked on the escape game is that immersive part. Just the theming of these rooms and how detailed, like the intricacies of the room themselves. Like
Mhm.
I have to take a few minutes at the beginning just to like take it all in, because you guys create such a cool room, and I just want to take it in.
Yeah. And you really do feel like you're transported into whatever the world is that the room is themed around. You're just like, what? I'm in this, but only for an hour? That's like, you're kind of like, oh, I want to hang out in here for a little bit longer. But then you're like, we got to solve these puzzles and get through this.
There's a clock ticking down. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the parts that drew me into the escape game, as a consumer, and a player, and then I wanted to work for the company was because I wanted to create worlds and build those environments for guests. I mean, if you play one of our games like Timeliner, you legit feel like you're on a train in that first section, and you forget for a second that, hey, wait, I'm in a room in like a mall in the middle of Florida, right? Like, but for a moment in time, you do feel like you're on this fantastical train that could literally go anywhere in time, and like, what am I going to run into next? So our teams do a great job of making sure that smell, overall, the environment that you're in, the sounds that you hear, there's haptic elements to what we do, so you feel certain things on certain rooms. Like, we do our best to make sure that you're fully immersed into the game, because that's part of the puzzle, right? Like, it's not, otherwise you could be doing a board game at home sitting at your couch. We want you to live it and experience it.
So how did the escape game get its start and get into this realm? Because I feel like escape rooms are a fairly new industry, but you've been at it for a while, right?
We have been at it for a while. I mean, they've been around for, gosh, so probably 10 or plus years for escape games, is when they kind of started coming out on the horizon. And actually, our founders, um, Mark Flynn, was on vacation in Europe with his family, and they saw their first escape game, and they're like, "Oh, what is this?" They were looking for things to do, and they played an escape game while they were there. And he was hooked. He came back to Nashville, and he was like, "Look, we should do this. We've got to build this out." So he partnered with Johnny and James, some people that he knew from his different friend groups and stuff that were looking to invest into a business, and he was like, "Hey, let's try this." So they built the first one, and I believe it was Mark's basement, and started inviting friends and family over to play it. And it was like this haphazard, like cardboard and like some different things. But basically, it was like proof of concept, and they tested it, and they're like, "Yeah, we think we can do this." And it was a pretty rapid scale past that. It brings us to today, and we're in across the United States, and I'm proud to say that I feel like we kind of set a standard for escape games and helping to elevate the overall, that piece of entertainment. So, but yeah, no, they're still not as readily known as you would think. Like, I tell people I work for an escape game a lot, and they're like, what is that?" So I have to do that elevator pitch and kind of walk them through it. And I'm always surprised at how many people haven't played an escape game. And I get to travel for work, so I'm in an Uber, and I'm explaining what I'm doing. And then I get out and I'm telling it to the cashier when I'm getting my lunch, and like the person at the hotel. Like, I'm always constantly like explaining to people what they are. So, but yeah, no, I mean, that just means there's room to grow, right? Like, and we just haven't brought the adventure to all the guests that we want to bring it to at this point.
You're out there literally door to door, word of mouth marketing escape rooms. That's amazing.
And again, I think the initial, once you hear about it, it's like the escape, like it seems like this.
It sounds dangerous.
It sounds dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's just, maybe we need to figure out a different terminology for it. But again, it's fun when you
It's
you
fun
escape.
when you say, yeah, I escaped today.
Right.
Your shirt says that I escaped.
Yeah, escaped. But when you're talking about that one, the one in the basement, I think our game master told us about it. That ended up being Nashville, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know that. So just to give a little bit of background too, like I feel like we traveled to Nashville specifically to do the other rooms that we hadn't done yet in Nashville. Obviously, it's one of them and it's only in Nashville. But when we were going into that room, they were saying this was the first game. And so it's played a little bit more like a traditional escape room where there was a lot of locks and codes and things that you had to, it was a lot more, lock based, which is what I think you'll see in most escape rooms. But you guys have taken that and really elevated it. So first, before we get into you guys elevating, because I know you got into it a little bit with Timeliner, but how many stores do you guys have now? Because I know you've expanded in Houston and you guys have a bunch of stores in Nashville. So how many do you have across the country?
I believe our current count is 52, if I'm not mistaken. So we are across the United States. We do have a strategic approach to how we grow and how we scale, and we have certain markets we want to go to and that we've achieved. But generally we try to be where a guest is and where we know that they're going to want to be entertained. That tends to be in more like tourist type areas, because people are in that frame of mind where they're with their family, their friends, and they want to find engaging entertainment opportunities. We can kind of fill that for them. But I mean, we still have places we want to go, and we are growing and scaling. And I would not be surprised if we hit that 100 mark within the next, several years. So
how many rooms do you guys have? Different themed rooms?
That is not an easy question, but it is so we have 9 in our portfolio currently. So of that 9, we do have unique games. So we have Nashville, which you referred to, which is only in Nashville. We have one called Sabotage, which is also in Nashville. We also have a version of our Ruins game that is rolling out across the U.S. currently, but we also have a unique version of it here in Nashville. We have one called Classified, which is in Pigeon Forge, and then we've acquired a company a while back that has some unique themed rooms that we chose to keep as those unique themes in the DC area, but they're not part of our overall portfolio.
Yeah, the 3 you mentioned in Nashville are the 3 we specifically went to do.
Yeah.
We did Nashville, we did Sabotage, which was very different. Like you told us,
different.
It's very different.
Yeah.
And then the current, or I guess the original iteration of Ruins. But
Yes.
they were all 3 very different games, so it didn't feel like we were doing the exact same game back to back. But it's cool to see the flexibility that you can do in an escape room where it's not the same.
It doesn't feel like the same experience.
Yeah, it's not like when you're reading a book that's got 20 books in the series, and you're like, oh, this is the exact same story over and over again. They just solved it a little bit different and moved on to the next thing. Like these all felt different, and every room that I think we've done with you guys, it feels different. You think you know what to expect next, and then something else happens. You're like, wait, what? I thought we were okay. All right, let's go over here.
We're pretty good at the wow moments, right? I know our game teams look for those moments, like, hey, like this is going to be a wow moment for our guest, and we want to make sure that we highlight it. And we also want to make sure we provide that variety, not just in the theme. Like you said, we could slap a new skin on the same premise and the same puzzles, and is that a new game? I mean, maybe. But we want to differentiate, and we want ourselves and our games. We want to make sure that it's an overall experience is different. So, like you said, you can play Sabotage. For anyone who doesn't know, is much more of a strategic, and it is a team against team game where you are actively trying to solve, a mystery, and you're also actively trying to sabotage the other team and prevent them from solving the puzzle and the overall mystery. whole different premise, whole different game. But I mean, that just shows you like the way what our process is and how we want to diversify our portfolio so that so that our guests are entertained and we remain that leader.
That's super cool to hear. Like, it's not just let's try to get it out and get more. It's like, let's create new and different and grow in that way, not just like slapping a different skin on it. So
Right.
that's super cool.
So you mentioned that you were like us, just a rabid fan of escape rooms, and now you're out here installing rooms in new locations. So how did you get involved with the escape game, and how's your career been within the company?
Mine is a little bit different than most paths. So, speaking of Texas, the first escape game I ever played was in Dallas, the Grapevine store. I was there. I worked retail. I was with a different company. I was leading a team of people, and we wanted to do something as a team building exercise. So I booked an escape game. I heard about them. I was like, all right, let's do this. Sounds fun. Luckily, I landed with our company. Our store in Dallas had just opened. And I went, we played as a team, and I was hooked. We played Gold Rush, which is the shirt I'm wearing currently, one of our original Gold Rush shirts. Also slightly partial to it. But first game I played, it was everything I wanted. Let's be clear. I was in a forest. I was in a cabin. I was in a mine. Like, I was exciting, and it was puzzles, and I was with my friends, and I was like, this literally is everything I want. So when I came back home to Nashville, I had a friend group that, we would play like board games and things together. And I was like, hey guys, we've got to do an escape game. Like, I just did this thing. It's amazing. You're going to love it. So we scheduled the next one. Found out, like, I didn't realize at the time that it was based in Nashville, but I was like, oh, it's cool. We have several locations here. That's convenient for us. So we started playing them, and I learned a little bit more about the company. And before I knew it, we had played everything that they currently had here in Nashville, which was all the games in the portfolio. And so then I started waiting and watching for when they would introduce new games. So as the new games would drop, we would schedule time as a friend group to go play this game right when it dropped, and we would plan a whole day around it, and it turned into like an event for us, which was pretty awesome. So right before COVID, I had left retail, and I was looking for what I wanted my next move to be, and I was like, I just want to do something fun. And I was like, I love escape games. I wonder if they're hiring. So I went and I was a game guide. And I was a game guide for a few months until I figured out where I wanted my career to go. But I wanted something fun to do in between. And I came home and told my partner, and I was like, my first day of work, I came home and I was like, I literally have had the best day ever in my career. And he just looked at me. He's like, you cannot keep this job. You know that, right? I was like, I know. I know that it's not, it's not the best when it comes to like meeting our needs for the family, but it was great. And I did. I mean, I was able to lead a team of people multiple times a day through something I loved, which was the escape games, right? And I felt like I was part of that team as I was helping guide them through the game. And then I got to celebrate at the end with them, whether they lost or won. And it was fun. It was everything I wanted to do. I went on with my career and other paths in leadership and operations. But it's always been at the top of my mind. So I continually was playing. Ended up being friends with somebody who worked at the escape game at the HQ level, and learned more about like the philosophy and the values of the company, and what it looked like from that perspective, from the HQ perspective. So it was always top of mind. So when the opportunity came again to like look and see where I wanted my career to go, I mean, that was the bar. Like, I mean, Disney was my bar, and I was like, but I don't live in Orlando. So it's like, but what's something that's tangible and nearby that like meets that? And I was like, it's the escape game. Like, it's next level to Disney to me. I was like, so that's what I want. So I don't know if I told you guys this yet or not, but what I did was I was laid off from where I was working as part of a round of layoffs, which gave me the time to think through things. So that first day that I did not have a job, and I was like, all right, what does this look like? I was like, escape games, the bar. So I went online and saw that they had an opening in the project management division, and I was like, all right, that sounds good. I want to get into project management. I've always been a leader. Let's do that. So I went overboard. I built a wooden puzzle box, and I put a passport. I made a passport that had like the texture and the gilding, and it had put my resume inside of it, like a little tiny one. It
Oh
was in
my
this puzzle
gosh.
box. I packed it up and I mailed it to Mark, which is that's our CEO. I mean, that's where my head was. I was like, I want this. So I mailed it to Mark, and I put the address of where the Adventure Factory is, because that's the one I found online. About a week later, the box got returned to me. It
Oh
was like,
no.
wah, wah. I know. I was like, wah, wah. I was like, ah. But I looked at it and it was returned to sender because it was undeliverable. And I was like, that's weird. And what I did, unbeknownst to me, was that the Adventure Factory was moving from it where it was to where it is now, and
Ah.
that location where it is now there wasn't anybody here yet. So I didn't know that, but I took the box and I was like, all right, just not meant to be right now. So I put that box on my desk in my office at the house, and I sat it there. It was kind of like, there's that pinnacle for me. That's what I want to do. And went on for about 6 months, just, catching up with life and working around the house and doing these things. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then a friend of mine said, hey, the Adventure Factory is looking for somebody to work in assembly, which is getting to put all the pieces together. I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I want to do that. I mean, it'll give me something to do while I'm trying to figure all this out. I've worked for them before. I love the company. Yeah, let's do it. It'll be fun. And so I came. That was about, like I said, about 6 months after that initial, try. And then I came in, started in assembly. Then a few months later, they learned, as they knew about what I've done in my career, and they were like, hey, we have this opening in purchasing. Would you be interested in helping us out with that? I said, sure. The entire time, I'm like, don't get attached. You can't keep this job. You've got to do something with your career. And and then I had the conversations with our leadership here. I told them where my interests were, and a position in leading the project management department, as the senior manager, opened up almost exactly a year after I had initially sent that box. And I mean, within the week. And I took the offer, and here I am. Literally got the job a little bit like leading the team for the job that I wanted, and sent that box that got returned to me a year later, almost a week. Here I am accepting the offer to lead that team and to start this adventure. And it's been fantastic ever since. Like, it's been a roller coaster. It's great.
That's
That's
awesome.
like
So
a
wait,
movie plot.
has that box been solved yet? Has Mark got to solve it, or are
So
you,
it's still,
because you
it's on my
manifested it,
desk.
it's going to stay forever locked up?
It's still unopened. It's still on my desk. I need to bring it back to the office and put it up on but it's at my desk at my office at the house. But
I love that story.
I'm kind of
That's awesome.
selfish with it. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
to me, it means like don't give up. Like, it's okay to have goals, achieve your goal. Like, to me, it means it's like a totem. So it's almost like, I don't know that I want it opened, and like,
Right.
Yeah, maybe
I don't
that's again.
maybe
That's
that's selfish. I don't know.
Or maybe send it to Bob Iger. Take that next step to Disney.
Hey guys, it obviously works. Like, here we go. Right.
And you just
Right?
get it sent back, and you're like, all right, that's the next step.
That's it. 1
Uh,
year. The time starts. You're living the dream over there, though.
Yeah,
And
no, that's awesome. That again, it's kind of, you manifested it, and just kind of like, this is what you want, kept pursuing it, and you're in something that you enjoy, but something that could be fulfilling to you in life as well. That's super cool to hear.
yeah, being able to do something for a living and like get paid to do something that genuinely like brings you joy
Right.
and like lights that fire within you, I think is so special. And so few people get to do that. So just like
Yeah.
hearing your enthusiasm for it as you're telling your story, I'm just like, is he gonna, I know you're gonna get the job, but I'm like, is he gonna get it? Is he gonna get it? Like, I'm so happy for you to be able to do something that you really love and support your family.
Right. It's rare. So I'm very blessed, and with a company that is, I'm biased, but it's pretty fantastic. So
Well, and I mean, you kind of talked about it. You were very fortunate to, the escape game was your first game, and you kind of, that was your standard. When we started out going to escape rooms, they were more local, and I guess like more mom and pop. So it was like,
Yeah.
we've kind of had the gamut of the single room, and they're just locks opening up boxes, or they've, some other places had like poster, like just more theming and a little bit more intricacy to it. But when we got to the escape game, it was like this became the stand. Like, I could see where that became the standard. So
Yeah, we
and
quickly
then even
became
like the
obsessed.
customer service of it, like as we went through one of the locations, we ended up having a game guide that was kind of our game guide that we would go to. And then once we finished all those rooms,
Yeah, we requested him every
yeah,
time because he was just like, we clicked. I don't know what it was, but we clicked with him and we're like, okay, we're gonna come back and we're gonna work with him. But yeah, there was only one location in Houston at the time, and so when we finished all the rooms, we're like, that's it. We don't have anything else to do here. And so I told them when we were booking, I was like, this is our last room here. We're really excited, but we're also sad. It's bittersweet. And they presented us at the end of it with a postcard that the entire team had signed for us. And I think they gave us, I think you give out stickers now to everybody, but at the time they gave us like the stickers and everything. And we were just like, it didn't cost anything to do that. It was the kindness and the thought and the effort that went behind it that just meant so much to us that I was like, I'm going to write a letter to headquarters. And I did, because it was so great. And you guys you were like, if you're ever in Nashville, come up. And full disclosure, because I want to make sure, because like we're interviewing you from a company, we have paid for every single escape room we have ever done. We've paid full price for every escape room we've ever done. We paid for our flights and our whole trip to Nashville. Like, we are just huge fans of what it is that you guys are doing, because it feels like you're disruptors, and you're coming in and you're doing things in a way that others haven't yet done. And it's exciting to see that.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head, right? Like, our game guides become part of the game. I told you earlier, that was one of the things that got me hooked with the company, was I got to play the games every day with new guests. It was fantastic. And our game guides, I mean, they are part of the team that are going through that game with you, and you do get attached to them. But our approach as a company, which is what I found super fascinating, was that we are a guest service company. So what does that mean? It means we don't just produce a game and put it out there as a consumable. Like, we legitimately look at ourselves as serving our guests and having that service culture, and our teams in our stores exude that every single day. And that's what, me as a guest, you guys as a guest, you experienced, and it's addictive. Like, not only is the game addictive, but that experience and that engagement, I mean, that's addictive as well. And I think that even more so today, like, we really we long for that kind of engagement. And that's something that we're able to deliver every day, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it's really cool. When we did go to Nashville, and we went to the Berry Hill location, and we did Nashville, and we did Ruins, and they knew that we were finishing up all of the games in the portfolio, and they made us like a custom postcard, and they had everybody sign it then too. And they were just really cool about everything. They were like, oh my gosh, you guys have done all of this. Tell me what was your favorite room. And it felt like when we walked in the door, like there was like a comfort there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
not to be cheesy, not like we felt at home, but there was just like, oh, hey, welcome. Like, come back in. Like, let's go do this one. You guys know the drill, but we'll run you through it anyway. Like, it was just very, when you're going to do an escape room, there's a little bit of anxiety. You're like, well, there's a clock, and we're locked in a room, even though you're not locked in. There's like, stakes can be high, but they just came in and they make you feel at ease. And I think that's another reason why we love the company. It's wonderful. So I think your customer service and what you provide there sets you apart and helps you to elevate the escape room experience. But you talked about some other things like the haptics, the smells. When we toured the factory, you were talking about even the floors. So can you expound on that a little bit, about what it is that you guys do to just elevate escape games?
I mean, that's the part I kind of nerd out about. That and guest service. Those are my two nerd out moments. But yeah, so like, we have a game where you're in a freight elevator. We talk about haptics, and there are mechanics inside of that make you feel like you're moving. You're not actually moving. You're on a ground floor, but there's vibrations, there's light movements, there's sounds. All of those things go into play to make you feel like you're in an elevator, right? You go into one of our games, it's the same game. You walk in and you get hit with this overwhelming smell of different types of spices. And it definitely like sets the tone when you're walking through an interior door of a building, But when you get hit with that smell and then you see the environment you're walking into, it takes seconds for your brain to now shift and you feel like you're on the streets of a spice market, you know, which is fascinating to me. Um, Lighting, like we go through and all of our games have very intentional lighting levels. So like we're very specific. If you're in an outdoor environment at night, then we need to light it enough for you to be able to see and solve puzzles. But we also don't want bright lights to take you out of that environment. My team, you know, they go to great lengths to make sure that the floors feel like the interior of a mine. The walls have rock; they feel like rock. You know, there's sprinklers. We have a lot of codes and stuff we have to follow, right? But they're like there's hidden elements that we have to try to disguise so we don't take you out of those out of the environment. But they're there. They're safety elements that have to be there, and our team does a great job of, it's not just like, all right, well, there has to be a sprinkler here, so let's move on. We're like, all right, well, what can we do to make that sprinkler less noticeable so that it doesn't take them out of the fact that it should be a rock wall, right? Like we're very
Right.
intentional with those type moments. Um, and down to the paint. I mean, like I know it sounds silly, but like we use special paints that have texture in them, so that when you touch the wall, it's not just the right color; it's the right texture. It's again, like they look at. I walk around when I'm here in the shop in the Adventure Factory and walk through the shop area, and they're like, I walked. It was probably 2 months ago, and they had two cubes, and they're doing this number with it, and I'm like, well, what are y'all doing? And they were like, we're testing the weight. And I was like, well, is that part of the puzzle? And they were like, no. I was like, okay, well then why are you testing the weight? They're like, well, it has to be the right weight, otherwise it won't feel like stone. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
I endorse it. That's the right mentality, but that's literally how we think about it. It is a cast product, like a plastic product, but it needs to feel and have the weight of stone. Otherwise, it can take our guest out of the immersion, and we can't have that.
I like
So
that.
Yeah, yeah. Although I was, it wasn't the chocolate factory. Going in there and seeing, like, it made me realize, because again, I was kind of like more narrow-minded of like, oh, it's just puzzles. It's just putting together, this and that. And well, no, you guys are creating every aspect of it, down
yep.
to the scarabs and on the wall, or the
The
every
frames that the
aspect of that
pictures are
room.
in, yeah.
You guys are making it. So like that, it's not just like, oh, let me go to the rock wall store and go find this, rock wall that has things,
Right. And I
has
think
puzzles included. You're like,
that's
you're making that.
that's what
Yep.
surprised us is you source at the Adventure Factory. You guys make and source all of the things that go into that room, including if there's seats or shelves or flowers or books. Like you make sure that the books are themed to the room, and you have, oh my God, it was glorious.
The organization.
The organization that was there was so beautiful, and that it was like everything that needs to go into this room is here on this shelf, and you can go and you can pull all of it and load it on the truck. And then that's what your team does, right? Is then you get everything for a room and then go install it at a location.
Yeah, my team get the best job.
I think all the jobs there are
Um,
so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to do
They
any of
are.
these. I don't know how to do woodworking, but I just want to be there every day. Like it was it was so cool
But
there.
I mean, yeah, we're intentional. So I showed you the books, right? Like, and I was telling you, like, if you go look at a book in Depths, which is a sea themed, under the ocean themed submarine room, if you look on the shelf at the books, they are biology, marine biology, science based books, because that's what's happening in the space, right? And let's be clear, the books are on a shelf that's like 7 foot up in the air. And is the average person going to see the book? I mean, maybe not, but but if it's one person that sees the book and it says like Curious George on it and takes them out of the moment, then yeah. Like that's a miss on our half. So we're pretty specific. But yes, my team they have the fun job. So we package up all of the pieces that go into a room. They're built here. Everything gets loaded into some trucks, goes to the site where we're building out a new game. And my team works with all these different craftsmen and trades to build the rooms. And we generally get one built out and guest ready within about 25 days, which is a very tight schedule for what we do. But it's because so much of the work is done here in the workshop, that my team, they get to finesse it and really, get to do all the fun pieces of it.
That needs to be like a new HGTV show. Like instead of like just changing rooms and houses, it's just like following along building an escape room, because I would get
From
cable
start
again
to
for that. Yeah.
start to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do a very good job of, like you said, with the sprinklers and covering their sprinkles, because we've done some more local escape rooms where you go in and they're like, anything that has a red X taped on it, don't touch that. And you look around the room and you're like, there's so many things that have like red X's on it, because there's like windows, and instead of covering the windows or disguising them in some way, there's just like blinds in front of them, and so they have like a big red X on it, like don't touch the blinds, don't
And again,
touch this.
I think that goes to the immersiveness of it. Like you kind of are removed from it. You're like, okay, it's just a room with the puzzles. Like
Right.
it kind of starts taking you out of it.
Yeah,
So
and we do them and they're fun, but it's not to the same level. So I guess that is my next question: is why do you think escape rooms resonate with people so much?
I can tell you from my perspective, and I know from conversations that I feel like you guys are similar. I think it kind of hits a lot of people the same way. When I was a kid, I watched adventure shows and Indiana Jones and Ghostbusters and all these, Tim Burton movies, and I wanted to be a part of that world, right? Like it's world building and it's something you want to do, right? Like it's your imagination come to life, and that's what you want. And we see now the culture, we have a lot of, there's a con for everything, right? And people are going, these are adults that are going dressed in character. And for a moment in time, they get to be that character. They get to interact with other people that are those characters. Disney does a great job of world building, so much so that now adults go, as much as possible dressed in character or alluding to certain characters, because it helps them to feel like the world's already built and now I get to play in it, right? And we get to live out that want and that longing that we had as a kid. And I don't think we're any different. Like I can remember going into Gold Rush, my first game ever, walking in, and I was like, yep, nope, I'm in a forest 100%. Like this is awesome. So now I buy into the game even more, because now I'm like, all right, the storyline, it's true, I've got to find the gold and I've got to like solve all these, like, the plot, right? And for a moment of time, I've stumbled on this cabin in the woods and I'm helping solve this big mystery that's been out there for a minute. I guess it's a form of, nostalgia and escapism and imaginative play and all these different things we could label it. But at the end of the day, I think people just want something to do that is fun and genuine and that builds on their imagination and allows them to be a kid and play.
I love it. I love what you're saying, Ricky, because this is like what I think are always saying.
Yeah.
Because a lot of viewers on our channel, we kind of got into this realm of podcasting, content creation because of Disney's Galactic Star Cruiser, which was their Star Wars themed like 2-night experience, kind of interactive theater.
45-hour adventure, to put it in the terms of a.
But it was like the whole thing that we kind of like really realized was, as adults, we forget to play, and in those moments we were able to play again and just be creative again, and kind of, if at that time, find ourselves and kind of grow from there, learn different things. But yeah, just like having these other avenues like the escape game is super cool to hear.
And then great question for you guys. Like I pose it as a question would be like, how many opportunities do you get to have an hour of pure engagement with your family and kids, right? To where like everybody is fully invested in what we're doing. We're working together as a family and we're going on an adventure, right? Like how often does anyone get that opportunity? And I think there's a level of that too. Like I love as much going by myself and with my friends as going with my family. Like my kids, as we've gotten, they've kind of grown up playing them because, of my path. And they still want to play them, right? They still want to go play the games with dad. They still want to go as a family. And they're like, hey, we don't have school on Monday. Let's go after family dinner. Let's go play a game. And, we can go play an escape game. Even before I worked here, they still wanted to do them. And that was a whole other unexpected benefit, was that you get an hour with your family, engaging them directly, solving puzzles with them. You get to see their personalities pop in those moments too, which is fascinating. So yeah, I think there's something to be said about that too, because we see a lot of families doing it as a group activity.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think one of the things is that you asked the question, like, how often do you get to do that? And if you're going to, you're going into the realm of escapism, if you're going to a Disney park or you're going to a theme park to go do that, that's something that you have to save up and plan for, and it's a trip, right?
Right.
Doing something like an escape room, if you're in a large enough city, you're going to have an escape room there. And if you're very fortunate, you'll have the escape game there to do. But so it's something it's more accessible. But when we had taken our son to a few escape rooms with a larger group. But then when we went to Nashville, this was the first time that like our family of 4 walked into an escape room together to do it. And it was different. Steven and I are very competitive. And so we got to the point where we were like, okay, we could do it with 10 people. We could do it with 8, 6. And then eventually we're like, just the 2 of us. We would go into an escape room and you and I would do it together. But being able to bring our kids along, it was a different experience, but still a really fun experience, because we got to see them and their brains working to try to figure out, how do I get to the next step? And there's 3 puzzles to solve. So which one do I work on? And how can my little sister help me with this? And it was so beautiful to see that, because you don't get a lot of opportunities like that. And especially opportunities where you're not on your phone.
I kind of think of it like, yes, we could go to the parks type of thing, but like going to the movies. But there's always that decision, like, oh, do we go to this movie? Like there's so many different movies, and you go to it, you could talk about it a little bit afterwards, and it kind of, that's the rest of it. Whereas like I feel with the rooms, we had the experience and getting to see their sense of accomplishment, being able to like, I found this key, I found this number, entering this number. Like there was like pride that they had that brought me pride. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're so happy to enter this number. My daughter was so happy to enter the numbers when it was such an easy task. But for her, she was participating in the group doing that. And then her talking about it, the entire flight home, or, still talking about it. Oh, remember when, I was scared from the ruins type, there's still like touch points that she recalls from that. And it was a simple room, but it has lasting impressions. I think that's the cool part of it too. Like you don't realize it till afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shared experience.
It really is. So we were fortunate. Like I said, we've whittled our team down. I think there's only one room in the escape game that we didn't get out in time, but the other ones we did. And even with the kids with us, I think we got out with like 18 to 20 minutes left, like each time. We're like,
so
yes.
Sarah has to know,
no,
are we record times?
No, that's not
immediately after she's like 20 minutes, that has to be some kind of record.
That's not my question. That wasn't my question. My question was more, we're talking about like the impacts with our daughter and our son and with us, and how much we love it and how much joy it brings us. And we are fortunate that we are skilled and that we can get out of these rooms, and we have a really high success rate. But people don't get out in the 60 minutes, and it is time locked, right? Like it is not, you can't go over 60 minutes. Like y'all have to turn that room around and get ready for the next one. There's the countdown, right? So how do you manage the psychology of your players playing the game, and that they're going to have a good time even if they don't escape in time?
In simple terms, our game guides profile you. So when they're doing their introductions and stuff, they're asking questions to specifically kind of understand what kind of game player you are. We have competitive people. We have people who do not want any sort of clues. We have people who want clues. We have people who say, I've never not escaped, and it's just not an option. And all of these are little nuggets that we learn about each individual team so that your experience is individualized. Now, I say that we don't cheat for you or anything like that. However, if we know that you always want to escape and that you don't mind having clues, then sometimes maybe you'll get a freebie clue that comes through to help you, solve it. Um, Whatever the case may be, our teams are very in tune to what will individualize your experience and help you through it. Again, they're not going to cheat for you. So they do people lose, right?
Yeah.
And then when that happens, our game guide, remember, they've been playing the game the entire time with you. And I am not joking when I say that sometimes you can get a little rowdy in the control room because it's like watching a football game because you're wanting your team to go and you're just like, oh, go, 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 no, 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 no. Like, and you can't say anything and you're just like, you want them to go so bad or do whatever. And so when they come in, and if you didn't make it out in time, they'll come in and they're empathetic to that because they wanted you to get out just as much as you do. So, but they turn around, they spin it, and they're having fun with you, and they're like, "You're going to get it next time," and kind of walk you through like maybe where your misstep was, and they do a great job of sharing that experience. And then honestly, if it was something that was you're like, you're super upset about because you didn't escape. Like, I mean, our teams are empowered to make it right by the guests. So, I mean, I've seen our teams do pull some magical moments where maybe you got to play again, or who knows? I don't know. I can't speak to what they do, but I do know that our
Right.
teams,
Oh, we've heard
they
about
make
magic
sure that
moments.
you're
So
going to have a great experience.
That's awesome. There's been some where apparently we like skipped over an entire section in the ruins, and they came and they're like, yeah, this puzzle you did here would have been so much easier if you had done these things. And I was like, walk me through this because I completely skipped
we
over
just
it.
brute forced it and made it happen.
We didn't brute force it. We got very creative and
Yeah.
sweaty as a result of having to move
You
things
just came
around.
up with an alternative solution.
There you go.
We did. We
I mean,
did.
and that's the thing too. Do you see people finding alternative solutions and saying, you know what, we need to tighten this up, and for like the next time it comes out, type of thing?
Oh, we're always growing. Like one of the things I love about this company is that it is continually growing and improving, and we're always wanting to do the next best thing. We want to improve on it. We want to grow. So you can go to some of our original games, and we went back. We've done some changes here and there, but like there are moments where you could, like in Bruins, you could solve it a different way, right? Or maybe you could skip an entire puzzle and still escape or something. I mean, whatever it is. So our game design teams specifically look back and they analyze and they review gameplay, and they talk to the game guys to understand, like, are there opportunities for guests to skip puzzles in this game? Why? What does that look like? So that they can understand while we're designing the newest iteration of the game or designing new games, they can understand, like, all right, we gotta figure out a way you can't circumvent this. And the puzzle looks different on their end, right? They're building puzzles, so they're solving the puzzle of building puzzles, right? So like it's kind of a reverse engineer moment. But that is top of mind, is understanding the flow of the game and making sure that maybe it can't be circumvented or skipped over. So
we have a Patreon, and we kind of put it out there to our patrons, like if they had any questions for you, and we had a couple good ones, so I wanted to make sure I asked them. So one of them was, and I think I asked you this before, what comes first, the theme or the puzzles?
That's a tough one. So that is our game design team, and I'm going to say yes. The inspiration can come from my conversations with our game design team. The inspiration can come from multiple places. Sometimes they'll go out to stores and literally talk to guests. Like just stand out in the lobby and talk to guests, say, like, what kind of game would you want to see in one of our locations? What excites you? They pull demographic information to understand, like, what's on trends right now. Like, maybe it's time travel, whatever it is. They'll send out surveys. So if you've ever played one of our games, you may have got a survey afterwards where it said, I mean, I have, and I'm an employee and I've played, and I get the surveys every once in a while where it's like, hey, what would you want to see next between these three games? So they're always looking for different avenues to understand where the interest is. And then, so there's that. And then our game design team, while they're professionals, they're amazing people, hyper intelligent, they're also kids at heart. So it's like they bring their childhood as baggage with them every day. And they're like, all right, let me unpack this. When I was a kid, I would have died if my stuffed animals came to life and we went on an adventure. Like that's the kind of conversations that happen in that room. So theme can come first, but there's also a world where a puzzle can ignite that imagination piece, right? It's a puzzle that maybe we just recently figured out how to do the puzzle right? We've always wanted to do it, whatever it is, and now here's the opportunity. All right, cool. What kind of theme would this puzzle fit into? Oh, a mystery noir. Awesome. Like we've always wanted to do a mystery noir. Here's our opportunity, and we have the puzzle for it. And so, yes, the answer is yes.
Now, like it was a kind of a two-part question. The other part of it is there was mention of the theming and specifically IPs.
Okay.
I know, as far as I'm thinking, you don't have Escape Game doesn't have any IPs connected to their rooms, but is there a thought of connecting it to IPs or a want, or is it just more of like we don't need to because we're able to kind of create these different worlds without that restriction of an IP?
So we do have some IP
Oh,
Oh.
but we don't usually seek it. It seeks and it is sought.
it's
So
not.
we actually have we did Rugrats. Speaking of our childhoods, and
Oh, that's
I'm
right. I remember.
I'm super sad I missed it. But Rugrats, we rethemed our playground to fit Rugrats, and Rugrats ran at King of Prussia and in Vegas, and just removed it from Vegas like 3 or 4 months ago. It hasn't been long ago that we took it out, and but that was Nickelodeon approaching us and asking, Paramount saying like, hey, we want to do this as an escape game. We think it'd be great from the nostalgic aspect and all that. And then, so we did have that partnership. And we've also
Okay.
partnered with Disney and Hulu. So, and the name escapes me, but it was one of the Disney Channel or Disney Plus series that was on there. We partnered with them, and we had a room that was themed towards that. And it was done as I think if I may be misspeaking, but I believe it was done as a remote adventure. So you could be anywhere in the country and you could do it as a remote adventure. Um,
Oh,
and then currently, we're actually on our second partnership with Hulu and Only Murders. So the first one was so
Ooh.
well, we rethemed Heist, which anybody who knows Heist, anybody who knows Only Murders, it kind of fit. We rethemed Heist to have elements of the show and be themed correctly. And now we're actually in partnership with them again. Um, so we do have those moments where we're sought out and we're teaming up with these different IPs, and we get these great marketing opportunities to work with them. And it's not restrictive, and you think it would be restrictive. I'm sure there are restrictions. Okay, again, I'm not in game design, but sometimes those restrictions are fun because it also provides that guidance, and and who doesn't want to make Rugrats a reality? Let's be clear.
yeah.
I,
Come on,
I
that's
do
great.
remember hearing that you guys did a Rugrats like retheme, but that it was in Vegas and it was like only for a limited time. And I was like, God, like we wanted to go and we couldn't make it work. But
And I think it's only asked because again, we're in the realm of Disney and Star Wars, and that typically for me personally is that draw. Like they just add that little Star Wars to it. It automatically catches my eye, and I'm like, oh, like what's that? And
mhm.
then I'll take it. Like it's as sometimes as gross as it is. That's what it
It's
takes for
easier
me
to
to
get your
look at it.
foot in the door because
Yeah,
it's something you're familiar with
yeah,
and excited about, right?
Right. It helps to remove one of those barriers to entry because it
Yeah.
adds familiarity, right? Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I would bend over backwards if Disney reached out to us about a Star Wars escape game. Like, that would be amazing.
oh, I would love it.
First in line.
Right.
I mean,
That'd
But
be,
I think one of the things that you guys do really well is because you don't have any of those boundaries within an IP, whereas you have to have, a lightsaber, you have to have this, or you have to have that. You get to create these worlds without limits.
yeah.
And the only limits are like physically, like from a puzzle standpoint and a safety standpoint, like what is it that you can actually do? And I think that's really neat too. I think it's really just getting people to go do their first one, and then they're like, oh, okay, this is cool. Because
Yeah.
if a new game comes out, I don't care what the theme is. Like, I know that you guys are going to do a good job with it, but the newest one that came to Houston was Cosmic Crisis, and we're
Yeah.
like, oh, space.
Space, yeah. Well, and that was again in my head. I was like, oh, this could be a Star Wars type theme. But then going into it, doing the whole thing, I don't think of it as Star Wars. I think of it as just a space adventure. You know, this Cosmic Crisis.
I know, so
Uh,
good too.
So another question we had: does the popularity of a game vary by region, and can you change or update games to make them more popular for that region? So I know you have Nashville, and it's specific. It's like the music, you know,
Music
mecca for a lot of
City, yeah.
people. So there's it's music themed. But do you have other plans for rooms to specific areas that, hey, let's change it to this, let's have it this?
So the easiest answer to that is yes, there are games that are more popular than others, and it varies from store to store, region to region, city to city. Like it can vary widely for different reasons. We are very intentional with what we call the game mix that we put into every location. So we look at demographics, whatever demographics, like what's this area known for, things like that, to kind of help inform us what the interest will be. So we're specific with that. And yes, we do go back and add. We'll remove games and replace them with other games based on we have a space one, right? So like maybe there's a store out there where a game is underperforming, it's not doing great because of the area, but they're like near they're in an area where it's known that space and Star Wars and stuff are really popular in that area. And we're like, all right, cool. Well, then our space themed game would probably do great there. So like we would maybe go back in and add it. My team is the team that goes in and does that. They get to go pull the old game, maybe put in a new game. So they get to kind of make those changes. And more often than not, we're expanding almost all. Like, we may go in and instead of pulling games, we're like, all right, these are doing great. This store would really benefit from having these 2 new games that we have, and maybe we'll expand it and we'll add those games in. But as far as like customizing the games, that's not something that I know of that is on our radar. Nashville gets the benefit of having our headquarters here, so it gets a lot of tests that we're trying it out. Let's see how it works. We're beta testing it and piloting it. And Nashville gets to benefit from that. So hence why it does have some unique games. But I don't know if there's a world where we would customize it. I'm not saying there wouldn't be, but at the moment, I don't see that being the case. And we also try to pick adventures that are pretty broad and reach a pretty broad audience. Like, I mean, who doesn't want to go in space? Who doesn't want to go on a time traveling train? Who doesn't want to go in a submarine under the ocean, right? Like we try to be, kind of appeal to every kid out there.
That begs the question. Yes, you'll change out rooms if they're not very popular, but how do you get people coming back to your rooms? Like with us, we did all of the ones in Houston, so we're like, well, now we got to go to Nashville and do it. But how is it that you guys keep people coming back?
That's the holy grail of escape games at this point. It is that it's we call it repeatability or replayability. You've solved the puzzles, right? There's a time element to that. We're finding that now because our company is 9+ years old. So like we're finding now that like some of those games that have been around for a really long time, we're seeing guests come back many, many years later because they don't remember all the answers or the puzzles, right? Like, so there's that element to it. Obviously that's not scalable to just bank on somebody coming back, way down the road. So our team is constantly thinking that one through, and like, how do we refresh? What do we do? How do we change things up? We have some ideas, and we may have some things coming down the pipeline soon to refresh and retheme some of your favorite adventures. That's all I'm sure I'm allowed to say at this point. And then the other piece is, all right, well, this works. Like, we don't necessarily, is there a world where we're going to go through and retheme everything we do? No, right? Like, probably not. However, like, what elements can we take of this, and what kind of new entertainment product can we create for our guests that, that does have that repeatability, which if a lot of there are a lot of locations opening up this year, several maybe out in the viewers areas, but it's called Great Big Game Show. That's one of our brands, and that's you get to go in and you get to compete against your family, friends, strangers in a game show environment, and do all these fun like double dare. It's not gross or messy, but like the fun like playing with Nerf guns, answering questions, and like building with block, like all these crazy things in an immersive game show environment. It feels like you're on a set of a game show, and that one kind of helps to answer our repeatability and our replayability piece, right? Because you can go play game show every single day for the next, I forgot what the number was, but I want to say it was like 50 years or something ridiculous, and you will not have the same experience. So it's randomized, it's built in, and then also we can update it remotely. So, but just by changing some games around, some components around, changing, questions or whatever the case is, we can create a whole new experience, a whole new deck of experiences for that repeatability piece. So if you haven't played Great Big Game Show, it is by us, and I highly recommend it. Anybody go play it. It's fun. It's great. But yeah, that kind of answers that portion of that question.
So we're talking about like now, just kind of, is this the future? Like, where do you see escape games kind of evolving? Like you escape game has created this immersion for it, but like in my head, I'm thinking like, you remember the old movie Clue, where it's like an entire house. Here's this murder mystery we're trying to figure out, playing this game of Clue, or Home Alone. You're trying to keep them out for instead of you getting out, you're trying to keep yourself in. But where do you see like just kind of escape games going?
I mean, I'll tell you from my perspective. How about that? So yeah. I think it would be amazing, to be in like an old antebellum, like create like, not want to call it a castle, but like a mansion, and it's all themed or Clue themed, and like we get to stay the night and we have to solve this murder mystery. Like I think that would be amazing, and it may exist. That would be awesome. But where I want to see escape games as an industry go, and where I would love for us to start exploring, would be in that have more interactive elements. And what I mean is, we've seen the amusement industry kind of go down this realm where you're standing in a queue for a ride, and there's animatronics that are, have simulated interaction with you. And now we're even seeing where the animatronics and the screen, they're actually interacting with you. In my perfect world, like I'm like, all right, what would be the next one I would love to play? I would love to go in and be like, it's like puppet themed or something, and like there's like 5 or 6 animatronic puppets instead of screens necessarily that are interacting with you. And just I think that would be amazing. And then I also see like puzzles getting more, I don't want to call it complicated, but more sophisticated from a technology standpoint. And we've seen it progress. But I think that the way that the puzzles function and the way that they're solved and like that kind of piece, I think will get more and more intelligent and interactive. So it's not the old days of a lock, right? Now it is we have a game now where you have to push these rocks on a rock wall, right? You have to put them in the right order, and kind of like playing memory, but now you're playing with a rock wall. I mean, that's kind of like, that's that evolution over time. And I think that we're only going to see more and more of that evolution happen in the puzzles and the gameplay piece.
I'm excited for it.
Just waiting for the next game.
Yeah, we're all about like immersive experiences over here. And so you alluded to Galactic Star Cruiser, and we've now done, I feel like, every escape game that comes our way, we're into it. And so it's exciting for us to get to do them, and even just like sitting here talking about them, I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us and answering all of our weird questions about escape rooms.
Absolutely. This is a blast. I mean, I get to talk about what I'm passionate about. So
we love that. And that's what we love to do here, is talk to to people about their passions. So thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about the Escape Game and the Great Big Game Show?
They can go to theescapegame.com. Pretty straightforward. You go on there and you can find if there's one in your area. You can see what different games there are. There's even like videos of the like trailers for the different games. And I encourage anyone who hasn't played one, just, I mean, give it a shot this weekend. Like take the fam out and just like make a day of it and enjoy. And I pretty much guarantee you'll be hooked after that.
I second that recommendation.
Yes, agree. Well, Ricky, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
And until next time.